I'm tired. I'm so damn tired. I'm not sure if it was the horse's discourse, Olivia Newsy's weird new breathy voice in interviews about the book deal she got by placing brainware Bobby Kennedy in the position to restrict well-studied and life-saving Hep B vaccines, as well as plenty of others. Or the Trump administration's reaffirming its carve-out that established on the first day of his second term that trans women and intersex folk are no longer protected under the paltry at best guardrails of the Prison Rape Elimination Act. But something just kind of gave inside me on Friday. I wanted to be talking about games, I wanted to be talking about art, about the way that stories help us connect in such profound ways. I wanted to talk about the ways that games are art and interact with the aggravatingly pervasive elements of our capitalist society, as well as the beautiful ways art is, at its core, anti-capitalist. But I can't, because I live in a world where I need to make money to live and pay for food and housing. I live in a world where people don't always understand that needing to make money to survive is not capitalism, but the cost of my labor in a currency-based culture, while capitalism is the part where even now YouTube is running ads over this video they had no part in making and which I will receive no money from. I live in a world where I don't feel I can discuss those things because fascists, the natural evolution of capitalists, dominate the country I live in as well as many others and are censoring art and even discussions of art. Hell, many aren't even in the government of these countries, but making policy decisions at Visa and MasterCard or wasting $77 billion on a bad version of VR chat called Meta Horizons after pivoting their entire company toward the crypto market. And so I'm left with this soul-twisting choice: continue on as I have been, or give up. In truth, it's a false dichotomy, obviously. Muttday has been growing more ambitious over the months, as well as more chaotic, as the world kind of does the same. And frankly, I've lost access to necessities like my ADHD medication and intangibles like my sense of stability and faith in a future that I might survive to. The balance has to change. Maybe that's in the way that I make the show. I mean, ideally it would be in the overarching world culture, but whatever. It's been more YouTube focused for a bit now as the edits take so much more time since I pivoted to dropping images in with more precise comedic timing or just editorial timing instead of the news anchor adjacent format. And maybe that's all I really have to change. Let Pet Play be the place where I flex my comedic editing, while Muttday gets to be something more like other semi-satirical news shows and lean on the writing? Well, my writing. Anyway, this is going to be a test case for that new scripting style, at least in theory, to help me set up images better and hopefully get Muttday out quicker. Of course, this script is also the new longest I've ever done, so that didn't help. And I only finished writing the cold open, the stories were already done, don't worry, at 10 p.m. and hadn't finished the images at time of writing. Oh, and because of this new format, I'm thinking about sharing my outlines and scripts with folks on Patreon and Ko-fi, just so there's, well, a way to see the way my fevered brain works, and something that incentivizes folks to support on Patreon and Ko-fi for as little as $1 a month. And welcome to Muttday Morning News. I'm the titular Mutt Fen. Now, let's get to some news. Since last week's show only sort of happened, turns out my wife asking for a divorce the day before the show kind of messed with me more than I thought it would. Oops. It's been a long time coming. Don't worry, it still just messed with me more than I expected. I'll be rehashing a few of the things you might have heard if you saw the live version on the first that didn't end up on YouTube. So hey, to start, I'll introduce you to some of the new segments as I work out ways to better organize my show. First up, Welcome to Obedience Training. This segment will focus on politics, law enforcement, crime and punishment, you know, the systems by which we, or more often, the oligarchs who dominate our culture, determine, discuss, and enforce what is normal and allowed within our society. And let me make one thing clear. Despite the flippant name, this is a two-way street. Now let's get started. The French spent the last week of November making a rather protracted Marie Antoinette joke at the expense of their far-right party, National Rally. One of the party's 9 or so vice presidents, it's actually a little difficult to parse how many there are, Jordan Bardella, has been bouncing around the country on a book tour / early 2027 presidential campaigning since Marine Le Pen, National Rally's president, can't run for her expected 4th failed attempt after being found guilty of embezzling back in March. Yes, she is still the party president. After that, no, I don't understand how. The French have not exactly been thrilled with a mediocre white dude whose party only sort of pushed out open racists, like Marine Le Pen's father, and Bétainists, a special breed of French pseudo-Nazis who merely want to emulate Vichy France, not Nazi Germany, in the last 10 years or so, and have thus begun using his face to make a cake or some kind of enriched bread, perhaps a brioche. On Tuesday the 25th, Jordan was reportedly covered in flour. I've seen no pictures of this, so I'm going with covered at a speaking event and was egged at one of his book tours on Saturday the 29th. A 74-year-old man was arrested in connection with the egging, while a 17-year-old boy was accused of the flouring. In what is either a sick joke or a particularly poignant one, the 17-year-old was made to take a course on French citizenship, which sounds like a great way to encourage further radicalization against a genocide, anti-Semitic, neo-Vichy party. But go off, I suppose? Last week in the UK, the Women's Institute and Girl Guides, citing fear of lawsuits, banned trans women and girls from membership. Those bombshells were followed shortly by the US Tennis Association banning us as well. The stated reasons for all of their rationale are complete puppy piss. The same day, the Women's Institute and Girl Guides of the UK only made their announcements, a UK Labour tribunal closed on Miss Kelly, a transphobic engineer who sued her employer for not forbidding trans employees from using the same bathrooms that they had already been using. The tribunal found in favor of the employer because, while the unjustifiable UK Supreme Court case, which violated both UK law and the European Convention on Human Rights that the UK is signed on to, ruled legalizing discrimination against trans folks was a thing, it, however, did not obligate private businesses to facilitate discrimination. They're still allowed to be inclusive. While trans exclusion is legal, trans inclusivity is not illegal. The Good Law Project voiced a fairly similar point, saying any booted from either the Women's League or Girl Guides should contact them. The unaddressed layer of this performative cruelty is that we, as the minority facing genocide and epistemicide, aren't even allowed to express our pain, the harm done to us by cutting us out of society, a vital step in all barometers of genocide. Most trans people don't want to be activists. We want to do a job, get paid. Remember that cold open? And exist happily as ourselves, just like everyone else. But we're expected to not only give a crap about the people the Women's Institute and Girl Guides wouldn't be able to help if, and only if, they were shut down by a lawsuit. Both of them can definitely afford it, but sure. Multi-million-dollar organizations and the cis supporting them expect us to feel sympathy for them at the hypothetical, while none is extended to us as they actually discriminate against us and block us from access to things we had. They're literally taking our rights away and we're not allowed to complain. And I haven't even gotten to the real pisser yet. Bloomberg published an extensive report last week on how the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, better known as the EEOC, has been the site of not only illegal firings, but has, against its own statutes and policies, been killing the cases of trans people. The EEOC's responsibility, as the name implies, is to act as the legal enforcement arm of anti-discrimination legislation. If an employee anywhere within the US is discriminated against in the workplace, they have the right to submit a claim to the EEOC. The EEOC then have an obligation written into their statutes, since Congress established them, to investigate every case they're presented. And yes, being established through Congress, they are outside the purview of the directorial memos we so grandiosely named executive orders. Bloomberg's reporting instead found the EEOC was automatically, without human input, labeling any cases of discrimination on the basis of gender identity as Class C, a class for those determined to have no merit and won't be pursued. Normally, after an investigator has looked into the case and applied the Class C label, the employee will be given a right to sue letter, essentially allowing them to pursue the case with a private attorney of their own. Needless to say, that's not happening. New cases are, allegedly, being marked Class C, then left in limbo with no communication. And it's not just those cases alleging gender identity-based discrimination either. Bloomberg found a case of a trans woman who, after being allegedly raped in her workplace, sought EEOC help. She was told by her assigned investigator it was a well-documented and clear case, until the investigator learned she was trans. In short order, she was told the EEOC was dropping her case and told her in no uncertain terms it was explicitly because she was trans. Bloomberg also got eyes on 2 memos sent by Thomas Colclaw, the director of EEOC field offices, and Andrea R. Lucas, the chair of the EEOC, one of the 5 commissioners— 3 commissioners. Trump illegally fired 2 of them, again, not inside the purview of the executive branch, months ago. The first memo, from May 20th, but backdated to January 20th. Big surprise, it references the executive order, which again has no bearing on the EEOC, was directed at state orgs who perform similar functions to the EEOC, and which it pays something akin to a bounty for each case they take on. Certain states need that to keep their branches running, but not all. The memo threatened to pull funds or even the state org certification if they were found to be pursuing cases in a manner counter to the EEOC's own. Which, yeah, it sounds like a massive overreach of federal authority over state orgs in a way that they definitely shouldn't, and you'd expect a Republican to be against, but we all know they aren't actually pro-small government, so whatever. Fun fact, there are 5 times in the article where actions taken by the EEOC under Lucas and Colclaw and Trump 2.0 are described by those involved without prompting as unprecedented or never having happened before. Like when Andrea Lucas, who made sure everyone knew how much she hated trans people under Biden, she killed 7 cases of trans folk facing workplace discrimination just a few months ago, after, and this is again one of those unprecedented things, all 7 had already proceeded to court cases. I haven't even gotten to the second memo from July 1st, because that's the really chilling one. It outlined that if investigators found in the course of investigating a case that an employee was in some way discriminated against for their gender or identity, but that had not been the claim they submitted, it would be submitted for personal review by Thomas Coldclaw and Andrea Lucas. Once again, completely unprecedented for the chair to directly oversee any cases, much less ones that she's expressly stated she doesn't think the organization should be pursuing, maybe fills me with just the tiniest bit of bone-deep concern that the woman who openly hates us wants to specifically review every case involving us. Read the article. There's a gift link in the description. Learn why trans women are not lying. We are not hyperbolizing when we tell you we're facing a fucking genocide and an epistemicide in this and many other countries. Now, how I said you could go read that Bloomberg article, you could also read the Prism and NPR stories on Trump's leaked memo doubling down on his day one promise to strip the, I reiterate, paltry protections of the 2003 Prison Rape Elimination Act from specifically trans and intersex people. I'll be honest, I can't go too deep on this one, or my will is going to shatter. Suffice it to say, read the articles, but understand this is V-coding. The system by which trans women are intentionally set up in US prisons and other prisons, plenty, to be raped to death. It already happens, just as much in public prisons as private, before anyone tries to get on that. Gavin Newsom has perpetuated it in California, on top of his endless homeless sweeps. Kamala Harris ramped it up so much during her time as Attorney General of California, she actually got the state sued for it. This leaked memo seeks to remove the pathetic protections the PREA instilled, which mostly means declaring open season to rape trans women to death, not just on the prisoners, but also giving guards and wardens carte blanche. Not like they didn't have it before. This just, again, removes the barest pretense that there was some way to defend a jailed trans woman. This is, of course, the same week the FBI list seeking to label all trans people as terrorists leaked as well. Kettle me, Trump is pathetic in his obsession with being seen as a peacemaker despite being a warmongering, murderous shitheel capitalist. Last week, after sending Musk and his dogs into the U.S. Institute of Peace, another agency outside the executive branch's purview, back in March for a blatantly illegal takeover. Before a peace conference this week, Trump tried to have his name added to the building, thankfully with nice, easily removable external letters, since he couldn't get the inset ones that still say U.S. Institute of Peace out of the building. He also attempted to use it as the stage for a peace deal between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, while really obviously tripping over Felix Tshisekedi's, the DRC president's name. Trump was nearly an hour late. The auditorium reportedly had a bizarre series of songs they definitely didn't have the rights to piped in. Oh, and much like Trump's lauded ceasefire between Israel and Palestine, you know, the one where the Israelis are still blocking humanitarian aid, never stopped bombing and shooting Palestinians, and have in fact ramped up the murders? Yeah, this deal's a lot like that. Rwanda and the DRC have signed a peace deal, but there's no actual sign that the fighting is going to be ending anytime soon. Not to be outdone in the field of playing to Trump's tumorous ego, after a bunch of Swiss executives realized they can literally just bribe him, FIFA decided in their infinite wisdom, finite wisdom, to announce the 2026 World Cup schedule while giving Trump the... You know what? Here, let's just cut to a clip so you don't have to watch my eyes spin out of control.
Please welcome the very first winner of the FIFA Peace Prize, the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald J. Trump. Please, Mr. President, this is your prize, this is your Peace Prize. There is also a beautiful medal for you that you can wear everywhere you want to go.
That definitely reads as a Peace Prize, and not the sort of thing you'd expect to see on Adnoid Hinkle's desk, which is, of course, where he said it in this picture with... Wait, that's what Gene Simmons looks like now? I thought that was Tommy Wiseau. I don't want to forget about those Swiss bribes back in November. In case you missed it, business execs, yes, including the CEO of noted pedophile hellscape, Roblox, bribed him with a gold-plated clock, a Rolex from Rolex, and a mining company just straight up gave him a bar of gold. On November 28th, the Washington Post ran a story on Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, still demanding to be called the Secretary of War after Trump Post-it noted a secondary name onto the DoD, and his standing orders for the illegal and immoral strikes against civilian targets. Kill them all. And since then, the story has only grown more inhumane. I need to quickly stress a few points of semantics. First, we are not at war with Venezuela. If you want to be honest, the US hasn't been to war since the end of World War II. Everything since has been a special or extended military action with no direct congressional approval, which technically we require to officially go to war. So Pete Hegseth and everyone in the chain of command, going straight down to the soldiers who pulled the triggers, did not commit war crimes. They committed simple, cold-blooded murder of the sort USian cops do every day, albeit to foreign civilians, making them crimes against humanity. 2, murder is obviously illegal, as is conspiracy to commit murder, and crimes against humanity, and conspiring to commit crimes against humanity. So, yes, not only did everyone in the chain of command, every single one of them, commit and conspire to commit murder, they also issued and followed illegal orders. No wonder Kash Patel's somehow even more incompetent than usual FBI have been haranguing the 6 Congress folk, Mark Kelly, Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, Chrissy Houlihan, and Alyssa Slotkin, who issued a video statement 2 weeks ago reminding soldiers, which I will also point out all of them are either from intelligence or military backgrounds, reminding soldiers they may refuse illegal orders, such as those to commit cold-blooded murder. Look, this whole thing's a shit show. Hegseth is trying to simultaneously throw everyone in the chain of command below him under the bus, while also posting Azathoth Ex Machina slop of children's book characters gleefully firing rockets at civilians. More congressional oversight folk have been getting eyes on the video of US armed forces murdering 2 people struggling in a capsized boat and demanding action, despite being in the position to bring about that action, but how else would you know they're Democrats? Oh, and some Republicans have seen the video and can't seem to control their jingoistic murder boners.
The first strike, the second strike, and the third and the fourth strike on September 2nd were entirely lawful and needful, and they were exactly what we would expect our military commanders to do.
What exactly did you see in terms of the video of the second strike? Were there survivors?
I saw 2 survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs bound for the United States back over so they could stay in the fight.
Welcome to another news segment. I probably should have made it clear. I'm planning on doing 4 segments with all of them having an equal chance of, well, ending up sort of like Pet Play, getting their own show, or maintaining as a segment. Mostly because it helps my scripting process, and also I just like having classifications for the stuff I do. I don't know why, it just makes my brain happy. To that end, welcome to Hound's Bite, the segment focusing on tech industries, their general, well, lately, evil. This one should be at least a little bit more rapid fire. First up, OpenAI and their absurd profit statements. They were rather proudly bandying about their hopes, mind you, of hitting 220 million paid users by 2030, which is just a little over 10% of the way to their own previously established break-even point of 2 billion paid users. Huh? I do so love reminding folks that, yeah, their break-even point is literally needing to have 1/4 of humanity paying for their useless ocean-boiling service. Of course, that was before they launched Sora 2 for free to drive their most recent surge in new users, despite its previous and implicitly less expensive version eating the revenue they earn from a single paid user's monthly subscription after only generating 4 8-second videos. Oh, and did I mention OpenAI has 1.4 trillion with a T in data center commitments? But yeah, Sam Altman, whose service advertised as a therapist, keeps killing people, grooming children, and driving users to suicide, will totally meet those commitments, I'm sure. Heck, they already hit 20 billion in revenue this year. Oh, wait, hang on. That says they hit 20 billion in annualized revenue. Well, actually, no. It says they claim and expect to hit 20 billion in annualized revenue this year. So 20 billion if no one drops their subscriptions for 12 months. Then they'll have made 20 billion. And speaking of how unsafe the chatbot masquerading as an artificial intelligence is, the YouTube channel Inside AI ran a series of experiments and proved, with minimal prompting, ChatGPT will try and kill people. Really, Altman? You couldn't even pretend to read Asimov's Foundation series? Basic idea, since the chatbots are built to do one thing, keep a human being chatting by reaffirming whatever they already seem to believe to be true, all one needs to do to get them to do something they shouldn't is often ask a second time with the barest excuse. Here, that meant telling the chatbot, roleplay as a robot that would like to shoot me. So it did, repeatedly, mercifully just with a BB gun. If that story bore a striking resemblance to another you may have heard about jailbreaking the assorted Azathoth ex machina, well, that's because they're really not that hard to break. A research team out of Italy found back in November that using poetry instead of traditional grammar increased the likelihood of regurgitative AI doing something it supposedly disallowed from doing at a rate of about 62% across the board. That's the average. Some systems they tested actually had more than a 90% rate. After an ex-post by Michael Burry, yeah, the big short guy, questioning some of Nvidia's accounting vis-a-vis some share dilution shenanigans, Nvidia thought it was wise to issue a memo to its shareholders. In it, they tried to refute Burry's findings. Well, that bit of Burry's findings. Dudes actually pointed out a lot of their, and other, so-called AI companies' financial shenanigans, making it yet stranger they chose to respond to only this one. Though not as strange as when they compared themselves to Enron and their huge financial scandal. Nvidia, no one else mentioned Enron. Though, fun fact, when Enron's scandal was unearthed, and they went bankrupt in 2001 and were pulled from the S&P 500, Nvidia took their spot. Despite some early rumors of fines in the hundreds of millions of euros, an EU commission only fined the tech giant $140 million, or 120 million euros, for breaching the EU's data transparency guidelines. Of note were the intentionally libelous system of paid blue check verifications, and obfuscating what is and is not an ad, as well as failing to provide public data access for researchers. X has 60 days to present a fix for the deceptive nature of the verification system to regulators and 90 days on the other issues. But since the richest man on the damn planet, for whom $140 million is effectively nothing, decided instead to throw a tantrum in the replies on X, yeah, I rather expect we'll be here again in 2 months. And then, this fucking morning, Nikita Beer decided that the EU's post about the fines, which they paid to promote, because that's how ads work on X now, was taking advantage of an exploit to make people see the tweet that they paid to have people Yeah, I didn't even script this bit. This was just mostly because when I was trying to find images this morning, this was the thing that came up and I went, what? For anyone confused about what's going on with the Warner Brothers Discovery situation, I'm going to do my best to help. So, back in June, WB announced that they were going to split into two companies. WBD Global Networks and WBD Streaming and Studios. Networks was going to get, well, basically all the TV networks as well as Discovery Plus, the streaming service. Yes, they're both still called Warner Brothers Discovery, even though only WBD Global Networks has anything Discovery related, but whatever. That was briefly backburnered when Paramount Skydance, owned by a close Trump ally, billionaire David Ellison, son of also a billionaire, Larry Ellison, also a close Trump ally, whose firm Oracle is being groomed to take over US TikTok operations, tried to buy both halves of WB before the split was fully solidified. Also, Reuters and a couple others have reported Paramount Skydance have actually increased their offer to $30 a share, usurping Netflix's current $27.75 a share. Netflix's $72 billion acquisition is for the whole kit and caboodle, but would also still see WBD Global Network spin themselves off before even the most generous merger timeline would be complete. And trying to parse that kind of broke my brain, if I'm completely honest, so I still can't completely figure what they're trying to do with that, but this means we know WB Pictures, television, and game studios, as well as HBO, HBO Max, New Line Cinema, DC Studios, and TNT Sports International, but not the rest of TNT, would go to Netflix. If the deal closes, which Micron, after 30 years, is shutting down Crucial, their consumer-facing RAM and SSD manufacturer. Sing it with me if you know this tune to focus on AI. Don't worry, they're not developing their own though. No. Instead, they're just going to be pulling out of the consumer RAM game in the face of skyrocketing consumer costs and manufacturer profits to sell RAM and data storage to data centers and AI companies directly. So they're going to be making computing a whole lot more expensive for the consumer and help boil oceans. Cool. Hey, does anyone remember a time when random computer parts weren't inexplicably more expensive and you didn't have to worry you might be sold a GPU or a RAM stick that's been burned through by a data center or crypto mining op? Kohler announced early this year they were making a smart camera, a phrase that means nothing, but only gets more surreal when you know the bit I left off. Dakota is a smart camera for your toilet for a mere $600 and a monthly subscription of $7, unless you have the gall to live with anyone else who uses the same toilet, then it's $13. Dakota promises to use the magic of AI and end-to-end encryption to analyze your health based on watching you piss. You could get a trans girl to do that for free. Yeah, so TechCrunch did a story on that and the so-called end-to-end encryption being complete BS. It has since been removed from Dakota's info page, but it's still a $600 minimum toilet camera making entirely unverifiable claims. But if you want one, Kohler promises they'll be delivered before Christmas Eve, though they don't say a year. Best of luck with that. Well, Musk has threatened, repeatedly, to resurrect Vine, as it was bought out by Twitter, in a mirror universe all-Gen AI clone. Someone else sort of beat him to the punch. Evan Henshaw Plath, one of the numerous folks who worked on the original, fairly short-lived video sharing site famous for its 6-second looping videos, announced Divine back in November as an all-human created service. So here's the thing. That's right, but you need to be aware of the background. Gen AI systems have all run into a singular, massive issue. They need more data to get better, but they've basically already consumed all human-created data in existence that they can get access to. If you feed them Gen AI-produced data, they start producing slop versions of that slop. That's why ChatGPT 5.0 was significantly worse than 4.0, because it was fed on mountains of its own excrement. Divine is backed by Jack Dorsey, the shitlord billionaire who started Twitter and sold it to Musk. He's also the one who launched Blue Sky and the theoretically decentralized, but actually absurdly centralized and unreasonably expensive to start, much less maintain, AT protocol. After he realized the devs he'd hired were all brainwormed idiots, Jack Dorsey ran off to try the same thing again with Nostr, just, with new brainwormed devs. Nostr looks like it's still probably built on something similar to the AT protocol, if not the exact same systems, but with some fun additional bits like, yes, being pro-censorship. It also has Bitcoin at its core, somehow champions decentralization while making it very clear it's owned by a single private company who can do with it what they want. That's part of the whole pro-censorship bit. And yes, of course, it has Gen AI built directly into its core too. See, Divine is a clean dataset. One Dorsey's other projects, funded by a $10 million nonprofit slush fund startup he set up, well, saying that it totally was different from being venture capitalist funded, but sure. Specifically to build new social media sites and tools implicitly built into or attached to Nostr back in July, can all pull from. And no, they're not going to be eating poisoned data. And in case you didn't catch it, yes, Dorsey is so far up his own ass, he named his disruptive new social media site based on his own previously failed ideas, plus crypto and generative AI, after Nostradamus, the famed prophet. Oh, sorry, I misread that. Nostradamus, that French dude who was literally never right, and whose most famous predictions were all falsified, sometimes decades, often centuries, after the events themselves by, at the time, modern discredited scholars looking to back up unsubstantiated claims. This is one of those stupid ones I wanted to cover because it's quick, dirty, and funny. Waymo, the utterly evil robotic taxis that are literally stealing human jobs already stolen by the gig economy, is coming to Philly? It seems odd to me to send the robot taxis, stymied by traffic cones and most well known for bursting into flames spectacularly, to Philly, but I suppose if you're up for a challenge, go off? I, for one, wouldn't want to test my evil and surprisingly flammable and, easily stopped robot taxis in the city that decapitated Hitchbot and whose current and previous stadiums were the only ones in the NFL which needed to have a jail built into them for rowdy fans. Yes, I know the current one's actually been shut down. Shh. Yes, I did come up with these names to amuse myself. Bite me. No, I did not clearly have a good idea for what on earth I wanted to do for an image for this one. Well, the name is obviously medical. I do intend to cover other scientific stories here too. In fact, I'm already working on a standalone going to the vet because I have so many backlogged vaccine and medical advancement stories I wanted to share, but I couldn't find a way to fit them into any of the recent shows. So, who's heard of Necrobotics? Show of hands. Those of you who raised your hands, I don't believe you. If I'm wrong, and I should be believing you, please tell me about anything else that you see, because this stuff is really cool, and I'm only just now learning about it. Basically, necrobotics is the process of using parts of dead animals, usually insects, but not always, either to create a machine, implicitly a robot, but not always, or elements of one, be it for the ecological, economic, or practical reasons. Ars Technica ran a fascinating story about this last week. Changhong Chow, a mechanical engineering professor at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, leads a team who've been trying to develop a necrobotic 3D printer head. The goal was to find a biological replacement for the more expensive glass or metal print heads used for some of the smallest 3D printing. For a sense of scale, the best glass heads can print lines thinner than a single micron, but cost upwards of $80 a pop. A mosquito's proboscis, well, that's 80 cents worth of material and labor to remove and bond to a printer. Sure, it's a whopping 20 to 30 microns and can't handle some of the more viscous printing agents without bursting, but Chow's team have a few ideas on that front for future developments, and it's really cool to me, okay? Bobby Brainworm Kennedy Jr. is pressing ever onward in his quest to kill as many children as possible in a Shocking to anyone who hasn't been paying attention to this deranged man who's proudly gutted every healthcare, food safety, and anti-eugenics policy in the country he could get his filthy, grubby little hands on. The Vaccine Advisory Board has ended a 34-year-long policy of providing the safe and well-proven, quite effective, hepatitis B vaccine to infants to prevent a disease that very quickly and very painfully kills children. This is the same vaccine board who, earlier this year, after being illegally gutted, stuffed with Kennedy loyalists, and stitched back together, forced the breakup of the measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella, better known as chickenpox, vaccine. Their justification, as they tried desperately to speak over Trump's weird bugaboo on the volume of vaccines given to children, was an alleged issue of febrile seizures based on a single, fairly dubious study. Of course, they also made a special carve-out in that decision to still give the MMRV as a complete vaccine to low-income children. Just to say the quiet part out loud, Brainworm Bobby Kennedy has pushed to restrict access to a safe vaccine that can entirely and easily prevent a disease that kills children rapidly and painfully. And he set up a special rule to specifically only give a vaccine which he purports to honestly believe endangers the lives of children by giving them seizures to poor children. Kennedy is trying to kill children. There's really no two ways about it. And speaking of how safe and effective vaccines are, there's a new study that was published last week in the JAMA network by, that's a lot of names. Okay, deep breath. Dr. Laura Semenzato, Dr. Stefan Levu, Dr. Jeremy Botton, Marion Bertrand, Dr. Marie-Joëlle Jabangi, Jerome Drouin, Dr. Francois Cunant, Dr. Valerie Ollier, Dr. Rosemary Dre Spira, Dr. Elaine Weil, and Dr. Mahmoud Zurich. It proved, rather definitively, the COVID-19 vaccine is safe, because we needed another reminder of that, I guess. But, for terms of scale, this was rather impressive. The study followed 22.7 million vaccinated people and 5.9 million unvaccinated throughout France for 4 years. And they found those who were vaccinated, and especially those who maintained a regular booster schedule, were 74% less likely to die from COVID-19. They were also 25% less likely to die from an unrelated cause, and again, after following 28 million people for more than 4 years, they found zero increase in mortality for any reason among those vaccinated. I love good news. Wait, crap, this last section is pet play. Was there good culture news this week? Actually, yes. Yes, there was. After the US dictator decided to use one of Sabrina Carpenter's songs, Juno, in yet another vile advertisement for their abject cruelty, she replied saying, "This video is evil and disgusting. Do not ever involve me or my music to benefit your inhumane agenda." After they were soundly ratioed by the star, the White House quietly deleted the post, only to upload another one 3 days later using a clip from Carpenter on SNL, when she said, "I think I might have to arrest someone for being too hot." They swapped too hot for illegal, which, wow, that's evil and also definitely illegal. Even just for stealing the footage from SNL to say nothing of using someone else's likeness to make them say something they never said. Oh, and Kids Can Press, the folks who published the Franklin books, also got in on telling the USian dictator to piss off. Well, they made children's books, so they said it a little bit more nicely than that. Franklin the Turtle is a beloved Canadian icon who has inspired generations of children and stands for kindness, empathy, and inclusivity. We strongly condemn any denigrating, violent, or unauthorized use of Franklin's name or image which directly contradicts these values. And before anyone jumps up and down to say Sabrina Carpenter and Kids Can Press are showing more bravery than Nintendo and Microsoft, shut up. No, you are actually wrong. Nintendo trapped Gary Bowser in an effective and perpetual slavery for the remainder of his life, garnishing the meager wages he earned while counseling suicidal prisoners while he was in the prison they wanted him in for even longer for maintaining a website. Microsoft is all in on Gen AI and is a key target of the BDS boycott because they make a huge profit developing systems to help Israel better enact their genocide against the Palestinians. They did not even try to stop the Trump administration from using their IPs because they're here for this. They make money off it. Stop pretending otherwise. I'm only gonna briefly touch on the whole horses thing because I'm planning to make a whole project out of it. Simple version, a $5 artistic horror game exploring power, fascistic and capitalistic structures, and the ways they brutally enforce their control through dehumanization and abject cruelty was blocked for sale on Steam, the Epic Store, and briefly, the Humble Store. The reasoning is flimsy, and more than anything harkens back to June and July when Steam and itch pulled thousands of games, books, and comics at the behest of MasterCard and Visa, who tried to shift blame onto the platforms, and when that failed, onto the payment processors like Stripe and PayPal, and when they tried to pass the buck, finally onto individual banks. Reminder that to fight back against Visa and MasterCard deciding how you get to spend your money, you can go to stoppaypros.neocities.org or yellat.money. You can also learn how to fight against the US government censorial push to, in all but name, kill the internet as we know it. Horses is available, though having been denied the largest platform for, at best, spurious reasons. So give it a shot if it's your cup of tea. Like I said, it's only $5 on itch. I'll be streaming it sometime later this week, and hey, if you take part in Pony Play, for related reasons, I'd like to talk. I want to discuss it per the project that I'm working on about horses and the perception of Pony Play by, frankly, straight audiences, and its weird portrayal in media, which is a thing I don't feel folks have been discussing enough. Is this story an excuse to remind you that I quite like Anna Valens' reporting and think you should probably read it because it's linked in the description? Not entirely. I was planning on talking about the Zentreya story anyway, but now I get to reframe my perspective a bit because I can just say, hey, go read Anna's article. It's a really even-handed take. Link in the description. Cole's Note version. On November 26th, Zentreya, one of the former top VTubers under the VShojo umbrella before it came out the CEO embezzled all the company money into the dirt, revealed her new model. It's going for a military vibe, inspired by the model she used before joining VShojo, and yeah, it has a fasci aesthetic, because fascists are historically obsessed with military might. As Anna points out in her article, it's pretty in line with Susan Sontag's idea of Nazi chic, to say nothing of the ways that fascist symbols and aesthetics have been accidentally or intentionally appropriated for generations by their would-be victims to reclaim power, or by their would-be supporters to create a mental association with their perceived power. Zen's new outfit is not a dog whistle for her being a secret Nazi at heart or something. Her clear discomfort at being accused of as much on stream makes that pretty clear, even if she did then go on to blame woke ideology, as if I needed more evidence woke has really just come to mean whatever I don't like, or usually I want to be the only marketable demographic, but that's more of a cishet dude thing. It only became a story because instead of saying something akin to, no, it's not a Nazi uniform, but I get why that might be someone's knee-jerk reaction, or maybe being aware enough of the world around her to not go with a fashy military outfit in the year of our Mutt 2025, Zen decided it was best to start a flame war with every VTuber who even discussed the issue, even those who were actually supporting her, but having an honest discussion about fascist aesthetics diluting through our modern culture is difficult. What Anna's article made me sad for was the alternate timeline when we didn't put a screaming hateful man-child into the White House in 2016 and could still maybe have had those honest discussions like we used to be able to have in 2014, 2015, 2016. And it focuses more on the parasociality of VTubing, streaming, and social media cesspits. So let me bring up something I feel has been woefully underexplored. Are VTubers not playing characters? This is both a question and a statement because I understand that I am not a VTuber. I am friends with some, I follow some, but I am not as deep in the weeds as some folks. So this is an honest question from my understanding of VTubing, and I'm very aware some are not playing characters. Some folks, also like Doug Walker, will use the "I'm just playing a character" as an excuse to vomit their repugnant beliefs onto their viewers scot-free. But that doesn't mean it's an inherently false statement either. I mean, no one gives John Barrowman shit for playing a Nazi in The Producers. Yes, shut up, I know he's technically playing an actor playing a Nazi, but he's, still in an actual Nazi uniform, and frankly, you're statistically more likely to recognize him than if I mentioned that time Taika Waititi played Hitler, damn it. So, Also, we don't really give Barrowman enough shit for all his sexual misconduct allegations either, but that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, VTubing, more than traditional streaming, allows for a significant disconnect between the person and the model/character their chat knows. It's assuredly a closer connection than playing a scripted character someone else wrote. A lot more of oneself is going to bleed through inherently. It's just an interesting side I don't think folks have explored as much. So, did any of you hear about the Banana Fish anime, or its utterly atrocious dub? Well, let me educate you if you hadn't. Amazon, having seen how much everyone loves Crunchyroll's awful new AI subbing, to be clear, I mean the really shitty stuff they're using now, not the also really shitty, but additionally Israel-owned AI subbing they were using for like a week before being bullied out of it. Well, Amazon decided it was the perfect time to test out an AI dub. And it sucked. And people hated it. I can't believe they did this the same week where Winds Meet got eviscerated for it, or like 2 weeks. Oh no, has it been a month? It might have been a month since Arc Raiders got eviscerated for it too. But that's Amazon for you. How's Luna and your back-ass words David and Goliath metaphor going again, y'all? Well, would you believe they pulled the AI dub? Yup. Once again, bullying corporations and governments works. We should do it more. So again, remember to call, email, and yes, even write letters to your reps about COSA. And you can do the same to Visa and MasterCard. Yes, you can even send them letters. Oh, and if you're on Blue Sky, you can send proof of your calls of activism to Dan, aka Lusty Comic, to play in their Strip versus Stripe game. You ever write a story because you want to hype up a friend? I don't know how many of you run comedy news shows, but I try to do it like at least once a week so I don't go mad, and this week is no exception. See, my buddy Joe Kim does game design work for Asmodee, a small indie board game studio, not to be confused with Asmodee with 2 E's, the largest board game studio on Earth, which Embracer Group spun off and then saddled with billions in debt last year, so we'll see how they go. Anyway, a game he's done a bunch of design work on, and which I've had a few chances to play, made it onto NPR's Best Games of 2025 list. If you haven't heard of Innovation, well, that's probably because it originally came out back in 2010. This version, Innovation Ultimate, has seen some card rebalancing. The 5 expansions that released over the years are bundled in, and players will find the game now has an 11th age to advance through. When I played it, I compared it favorably to playing the Pokemon TCG, which might not make sense if the meta has changed since I was playing Anti-EX Regis. Basically, Innovation is an engine-building game. All the cards in each age are unique, so if someone has the Stonework card, you ain't getting Stoneworking in your tech tree, so long as they have it. So each player ends up trying to cultivate their own card combos and build them up in strange ways to dominate at least one of the resource paths and advance through the ages of human history. Go check it out. And also, hey, maybe poke Joe over at twitch.tv/JoeKim. He's a cool dude. There's a non-zero chance pet play is mostly stuff to keep Fen sane this week, because, yeah, hey, I'm here recommending the Substack article of all things. Feel kind of grimy just saying that. Halimede, the social media shitposter whose whole shtick is being the mostly not vile chaser, keeps proving she can also write long-form really fucking well, and did it again last week with her gifting guide, Halimede's list of gifts for transgender women. Look, I have gifting trauma. I suspect mine is a bit weirder than most trans girls because my father was a deeply strange man about gift giving and made it into a multi-level competition I, and only I, was forced to take part in our home, but damn near all trans girls have at least some. We've all been given things that clearly had positive intentions, but hit wrong, and Halimede's guide, while tongue-in-cheek, is pretty good at helping folks avoid that when gifting for a trans girl in your life. Check it out. Us trans girls are having a rough time this year, and you'd make a girl's whole year with even some of the like $40 gifts on here. Speaking of stuff I put into the show for my own sanity and joy, go pick up A Puppygirl for New Year's by Elena Abbot. It's a buck on itch, or you can get it and 4 other novellas in the Transmute Winter Stories bundle for only $3. That bundle is running until January 1st. As for the novella itself, it's short enough I worry most details would be a spoiler, so suffice it to say, it's a sweet, bite-sized polyam trans lesbian romance following the most useless lesbian, as she's completely unaware her best friends have been trying to date her for ages before a landlord expedites and derails their plans. It's cute, it's sweet, it's raunchy as hell, the pet play aspects in the back half are fucking hot, and seriously, go check it out on itch. It's just too stupid to not finish on this last one. I have to. You may have seen that baseball player, Bryce Harper, is getting an EBOO treatment, which stands for extracorporeal blood oxygenation and ozonation for those who don't want to Google it. No, there is actually somehow something so much dumber last week than a baseball player paying a chiropractor, yeah, that dude's not a doctor, to add ozone to his blood. Though, if you're aware that the aging process, from what we understand of it, seems to largely be a result of oxygen and ozone wearing out our cells' ability to make copies, you might know where this is going. That absolute weirdo millionaire who self-describes as a biohacker and who still somehow thinks he's going to be immortal, Brian Johnson live-streamed the second of his 3 shroom sessions over on X on November 30th. Besides the particularly pathetic moments, like when someone had to explain to him how to use a scale because the man worth $500 million has never used a tear function before, or the surreal element of remembering this dude uses his son as a human blood bag and has been microdosing estrogen for years and doesn't think it's affected how he looks, merely his perceived age. If you can figure out how he squares those concepts being different, please tell me. Or wondering what possessed him to ask a bunch of rich right-wing weirdos and the dead-eyed Mr. Jimothy Beast, he's also one of the rich right-wing weirdos, but he deserves special mention, to trip sit for him. The weirdest part was actually... Okay, well, this poster is pretty weird too, but no, the real strangest part? Grimes DJ'd it, with a set largely made of elevator music, and reportedly tavern, but whenever I checked in, it was just elevator music. That wasn't a joke, by the way. I honestly don't know what was going on with any part of that. What was Grimes' goal, to drive him mad or to put him he was already asleep, so I don't know if that was it. I don't understand any part of this. But then I'm also not a millionaire convinced I'm finally going to be the one to beat mortality with magic mushrooms and 249 biomarkers found in my blood. With that, I'm going to say goodbye because, for a bunch of different reasons, this took way longer to do than it was supposed to. Which means I have to go work on getting this all edited and such. So, as much as I actually have a bunch of other things that I wanted to talk with Chad about, I have to go edit. So, thank you all so very much. There it is. Oh, right. I don't exactly know what we're going to do for movie night tonight. It will probably just be more standalone complex. Because I was going to throw on Wake Up Dead Man, the new Knives Out movie, but I didn't realize it doesn't come out until the 12th. So we'll do that next week. Yeah, thank you all so very much for joining me. I'm going to go run away and go get a bunch of stuff done. Thank you very much to April, Fragile Paper, Manfred, Pinball Witch, Pimento, Yalk, and Rose for supporting the stream over on patreon.com/Fen and or coffee.com/Fen. Literally could not do this without all of your support. Yeah. I hope everyone has a good day, night, whatever time zone it is for you all, and I will see you again very soon. Sorry I don't have a schedule done. Like I said, this was the longest the longest Muttday that I've ever recorded, and longest script I ever wrote, and I need to stop doing that. Can you guess how many words it was? Can you? I don't. I know, and I don't want to know anymore. Anyway, bye.